off in 2001 for my dream job in the Silicon Valley. I was devastated. When I came home and opened the door, I saw my mom standing there. It's as if my mind or my heart, like she knew I needed her. You see, I was escorted out of my office building with a box of my belongings. I was shocked, I was embarrassed. It was a blow to my ego. So I really wanted the comfort of my mom. Even though I was 32 years old, I still needed my mom. So I blurted out to her, and I said, "Mama, I just got laid off." She frowned, and I thought, here it's coming, this wave of support, encouragement, love. Her frown turned into a big smile, and she slapped her hands together and said, "Good, now you could focus on finding a husband." I was shocked, and too, Brutus? It's as if she was laying one more grievance on top of me. I didn't have a job anymore, and I was reminded that I was over 30 and still single. Now, it wasn't from lack of trying. I went on my fair share of blind dates, being set up by friends, and I even tried the auntie network. In fact, the previous year, an auntie was pressuring my mom to get me to accept her nephew, who needed a green card by the end of the year. And when I refused, she had the gall to tell my mom, "I saw your daughter. She's too short, too dark, and she's too old." At that point, I gave up the auntie network for my own sanity. So after being laid off, I focused my time on finding jobs. My mom focused her time on finding husbands. And every day, it was another idea after another, and I just started tuning her out. Well, then one day, during one of her schemes, I heard the terms Chicago, singles event, Muslims. And I stopped what I was doing and I was intrigued. Not because I wanted to go to a singles event in Chicago. I feel like I had a point here to leverage with. So I asked her, "What are you talking about?" And she told me this organization, for the first time, was doing an event for young single people who were Muslim to find someone. So I told her right there and then, I said, "Mama, if I go to this, will you please then never bring up this topic again?" And she readily agreed. So I went ahead, I registered us for the event, which was called a matrimonial banquet. And I booked our tickets to go from San Francisco to Chicago. And true to her word, my mom did not bring the topic up. I was hoping for a reprieve, but unfortunately, I realized that finding a job during an economic recession was hard, and I was having to redefine myself. You know, being older, I was competing against new graduates, and I really had to dig into my years of experience with communication, facilitation, networking. Well, before I know it, the weekend for the event approaches, and we fly to Chicago. And luckily, this event is really close to the airport by a convention center. So in my mind, we get there, attend, and leave. So when we walk in and we enter and make our ways towards the banquet hall, you can hear it before you see it. And the registration desk is swarmed with people, looking like a ticketing desk when a flight is canceled. The room holds 500 people, and there are about 100 people on the waiting list trying to get in. I grab our registration packet and make my way in there and find our table. When I pull out the packet, I see our name tags. My mom's is fairly simple with just her name. Mine has an orange ribbon on it, with no explanation why. As I look around that room, I finally see a color code on the wall. And the color codes are indicating our age ranges. And orange was over 30. And I look around that room and I can tell you, orange was not the new black in that room. So after listening to some speeches and having dinner, I got up and made a beeline for the bathroom. When I got there, I looked at myself in the mirror, and all I saw was that badge, and that orange ribbon. And I ripped it off, and I just crumpled it in my hand until it was like a blob of orange plastic paper, and I threw it in the trash. And I looked at myself again, and I felt like I could really see myself, see all the years of experience that I have in what I do and what I really honed in on, in socializing, networking, communicating. And I thought, you know what? I'm bringing all of that, all of who I am, back into this event. So I walked back in there, completely rejuvenated, feeling really renewed. And I looked around, really looked around, and I started seeing patterns. Groups of girls just standing with each other, not talking to anyone. Groups of boys kind of giving side glances over to them. And I thought, I got this. And I just walked up to those girls and I said, hey, just come with me, let me introduce you to some boys. They looked relieved and happy. And then the floodgates opened. I mean, I had aunties dragging along their kids to me, asking for help. All of a sudden, I felt like I was here for a purpose, and I was having fun. The highlight of the evening, though, was when these two girls came up to me and asked for some help and said, can you introduce us to those two boys standing there by the wall? I glanced over, one of them kind of had this James Dean type of demeanor. He was brooding, he was slouched, had a tattoo, he was leaning against the wall. And I said, okay, just wait right here. I walked up to them and I said, hey, there's a couple girls that want to meet you. Mr. James Dean says to me, yeah, I know, they all want to meet me. I just said, you're arrogant, and I walked away, not before seeing him look a little shocked by what I said. He came back quickly and said, I'm just joking, I'll go with you, who wants to meet us? So I took them over to meet the two girls, and I didn't think much more of it after that. Well, later that evening, Mr. James Dean comes on over to me, and he says, are you a chaperone? I'm shocked. I'm like, no, I never even thought of myself as a chaperone here. I said, no, I'm attending, and I confessed. I said, I'm older than most of the people in this room. I told him how old I was. And then he said, hey, I know someone for you. Just come with me. And so I did. I felt like I owed him. He came with me when I asked. So when I went with him, we went outside of the room. And there in the hallway, pacing back and forth like a caged animal, was my future husband. Introduced to me by Mr. James Dean, AKA his younger brother.
My name is Jihad. Yeah, Jihad. Or at Starbucks, I go by Jay. Because the Starbucks system rejects it because it thinks it's a bad word. Not surprised, it's been misunderstood by non-Muslims and Muslims alike. The meaning behind the name is the struggle to do the right thing. And in my head, I'm like, great, I'm named Struggle? I'm okay, I'm fine. And I struggled with Islam a lot. I, for some reason, imagined this angry white dude upstairs just judging me and granted I did grow up in Georgia, so that might have been an influence. I struggled with praying 5 times a day, which to me it felt like all the time. But in particular, I struggled with this phrase. The phrase is inshallah. It means God willing. My parents use it for big stuff and a lot of small stuff. Like if I would ask for a Game Boy to play Pokemon, they would get a distant look in their eye and they would say, inshallah, God willing. I could not accept that. For me, I wanted to be the master of my destiny, the captain of my soul. I took it upon myself that I will be the person that decides how my life goes. I will be in control. And so with my destiny in my sights, my hands on on the helm, I set sail. I went to a university my parents can brag about at dinner parties. Did part-time jobs, internships, co-ops, got the big tech job of my dreams, and the salary to match. And I thought, you know what, I'm on my way to be the adult that's got it handled. I'm good, I'm in control. Until one day. In Bengali culture, if you're a man and you make some money, there's some expectations with that. You gotta take care of your family, you gotta treat them. My cousins had a nickname for me. It's Chini Bhaiya. Chini means sugar, Bhaiya means brother. So I'll let you guys put that together. So apparently I'm like the mayor of Candyland, and I'm just so inspired. I take my family out to the Canadian countryside for this beautiful cabin trip. And there's a river next to it that I wanted to take my cousins out for tubing. So one beautiful summer pristine day, we grab 2 floats and we walk into that river. The water is up to our knees. No life jackets needed, of course. We're good. And we set sail. We're floating down the river, me and my 8-year-old cousin on one, and 2 other cousins on the other, and we're enjoying the hot sun in our face, the cool waters flowing beneath us, and everything feels good. And we're feeling pretty secure. I mean, any moment we can just jump off, grab the float back, and we'll be right back where we started. We done. When the shore started looking a little bit small, I realized, you know what, let's head back. I literally backflip off the float, obviously to impress my 8-year-old cousin, how cool what high I am. And I'm expecting ground under me, I find nothing. And the current, a lot stronger than it looked like, than I imagined on the float. I feel seaweeds clinging to my legs from murky waters underneath. I frantically look for my cousins on the other end to warn them. I can't get my words out in time before one of my other cousins jumps off. And he finds out the same thing I find out. I go into emergency mode. What are my options? What can I do? How can I solve this situation going on right now? And I see some elderly folks on the shore. And it crossed my mind, maybe I should ask for help. No, I told myself. I got us in here, I will get us out. I got this, I'm in control. So I start pulling from the front, I swim around, I try pushing from the back, trying to get my 8-year-old who does not know how to swim, no life jacket, back to shore. And as my muscles are aching, like there's river water in my eyes, my breathing is shallow, after all my efforts, I'm pretty sure I was in the exact same spot that I started in, if not further down the river. And even then, I'm thinking, what can I do? What can I do to solve this? Like, there has to be a way. Maybe I need to push towards shore. Maybe I need to do something. And I'm lost. I don't know like how to get us out of here. And then I hear my cousin yelling for help to the shore, to the people on the shore. And this seniors Avengers team, my God. One lady put a pool noodle through her bikini and swam in and glided over and went to the other side of the river and got one of my cousins on the other float. And then 4 others came over to my float and whispering words of assurance, don't worry, you're safe, I got you. But only as we're getting closer to the shore do they really tell us how much of a dangerous position we were in. That river went out for another 3 hours. And they were on their way out. And they were saying, good job, and asking for help. Once we were on shore, we all allowed ourselves a breath of relief. But the implications of any one of us getting hurt would have been life-changing. It would have been a tragedy that I don't know where we would have come back from. And I felt a pit in my stomach. Wasn't I the one responsible? Wasn't I the eldest? Wasn't I their Bhaiya? Wasn't I in control? The car ride back was silent. But my mind was not. Still, like, thinking, like, what could I have done? Like, there were no signs. We didn't know about the river. Maybe I should have done more research. Maybe I should have done this, that. But my mind went back to something my mom was explaining to me when I asked her, when I was asking her when I was a kid, why do you guys say inshallah so much? Like, what's the point? Like, why don't you just handle it? Why leave it to God? And she says, Babu, listen, not everything is under your control. Sometimes there are things that you can't control, some things you can't predict, some things you can't handle, and you just have to let go. You have to let go, and whatever forces are beyond us, you have to just let go to that. We get back to the cabin, and it's the evening time, and the evening prayers. We're all assembling for evening prayers, and instead of acting busy as I usually do, or some important thing to be done conveniently at the time, I wanted to go. I wanted to be in that silent communion with my family. I wanted to have that outpouring from that experience we had that day. And during those prayers, as I'm reciting my surahs, I feel a transformation in the guilt and shame that I felt for putting my cousins in that position. It transformed into gratitude. That, like, regardless of the lack of control, or maybe because of it, I had to accept that I didn't know. It was a mistake. And whatever happened outside of it, everything was fine. With, albeit, a more newfound caution of open waters. I'll be honest with you. I'm not here praying 5 times a day. But there was a perspective shift on why we do certain things. And later that night, as we were all huddled around the campfire and crickets chirping around us, my 8-year-old cousin that I was with sneaks up behind me and she asks, "So when are we going tubing again?" I was like, crazy? I'm not going back to a river again. But I thought about it. And I might have had a distant look in my eyes when I said, inshallah, we'll go tubing again. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
2004. One winter late afternoon, I'm sitting in my office. Math department, University of Missouri, Columbia, Missouri, with a stack of papers. Student evaluations. I was the TA there, my first semester there. And yes, it was that time of the year when teachers are evaluated by students anonymously. So I start looking at the papers, I'm flipping over. The instructor is hilarious. Yay. Easier quizzes, please. More grades on homework. I hate math, but I love her classes. I thought I got this. I flip over a few. Then there it was. Go back to your country. Yeah. Go back to your country. Shocking, right? But at that time, I chuckled. I'm a strong person and I can take comments. So I thought it was one of those students who didn't do well, probably didn't pass, mad at me, mad at the course, and just taking it out with that. Big babies. I moved on, flipped a few more positive, encouraging comments. Oh, good, yes. Good. All right, done for the day. There in my office, I stowed away my papers in my office drawer desk. Off to next activity. Working out. The gym was just right next to math department. It was super convenient. So I go to the gym. I approached my favorite workout machine, a rower. Rowing makes me happy. After the initial resistance of the body, when there is the rhythm, the pulling, and the breathing are in sync, it gives me a high. I feel stronger. I feel more calm. So I went on, started pulling, hoping for the great workout. I tried to focus, focusing. But something was happening. There was something missing. I kept pulling. And I asked why. I realized those words, those heavy, horrible words. I'm strong, but those words got past my positivity wall. It sank into my body. It pierced my soul. I felt shattered. I felt insulted. That was not the first time I was teaching. I have been a TA in the Ohio State University. That time, I was fresh off the board. My accent, my pronunciation, the way I dressed up, the way I interacted with people, my lifestyle was much more foreign then. Still, it didn't matter there. I was welcomed, I was accepted. So I thought I was lucky I dodged the racism bullet. No. I'm here now, sitting on the rover, devastated, heartbroken. This is not right. Those words were not for my math or the way I teach. It was because where I came from. I'm a positive person, positive to a fault. These words cannot bother me. I kept pulling, trying to be more focused, and the plan started shaping up. I ended the workout better. That night, I slept happier. Next morning, I go to my department after regular lectures and teaching. I'm walking down the hallway. My office was a corner office, and my colleague Jae-won Lee from Korea was talking to me, and we were engaged in some conversation, perhaps the last lecture that we had together. And we continued in front of our office door. All of a sudden, Jae-won stopped and blotted out. "Meeta, what's that? Who taped it on your office door? Those are horrible words." I looked at him and I said, "I did," somewhat proudly. He goes, "Why?" I said, my students who have young minds and their life is still shaping up, they need to take comments and criticism positively. We should be open about it. We shouldn't hide it. We can still move on. Math has to be perfect. Life does not. It's okay not to be like others. And it's also okay not to be liked by others. Next semester came and went. Another one. The third one. It was the time of the Green Chalk Award, the best TA award of the university, and it's very special because it's student nominated. I got the award. I went up on stage. While receiving the award, I remembered those horrible words. Go back to your country. I told myself, Meeta, you don't have to go anywhere. You belong here.
There is a pool of sweat collecting by my belly button, but he can't tell because I am wearing an oversized white button-down shirt. My background, it's blurred, so he can't see the mess of clothes on my bed or the collection of used product bottles on my dresser. I'm in an interview. I haven't been in an interview in over 3 years. Heck, I haven't had a job in over 2. And I've been putting it off. I mean, I've been trying not to take any of these things or applying to certain jobs because I'm afraid of the interview. I mean, I'm nervous. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they don't like me? What if they reject me? What if I don't get the job? But I feel like this interview is going pretty well. He's asking me questions and I feel pretty good about answering them. I don't feel like I have to be a certain type of person to answer these questions. He's asking me about my experience in my career. He's asking me behavioral questions. And about 45 minutes go by. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And he tells me there's one last question he wants to ask me before I can ask him questions. Shweta, what would you say is your greatest career success? As he says it, I take a deep breath and I sit back in my chair. And I scan the entirety of my desk, which is also very messy. And I see my 5th grade yearbook. And if you flip the pages in this yearbook, you will come to my photo. A 10-year-old me with a 13mm overbite, and next to me, all of these questions asking about my future. It was Mr. Shaloni's class, 5th grade, and we were all sitting right after lunch. He passed out all of these worksheets with questions that had the answers that we were going to have next to our photo in the yearbook. The last question was, what do you want your future to look like? All the other kids were really, really excited. I mean, they had all of these dreams to become veterinarians or hairdressers or firefighters or actors or basketball players. And then there was me. And I didn't really have any dreams. I mean, I had examples. My dad, one of his best friends, his daughter graduated high school as the valedictorian at 16 and she's going to Harvard. And apparently really smart people go to Harvard. And in the summers, my dad, he would take me to Cambridge by MIT, and he told me that people who are really good at math go to MIT, and I'm really good at math. all of my family, they're all doctors or computer scientists, and I feel like doctors, they help people, so that's a good thing. And computer scientists, they're smart, and I'm good at computers. But to have dreams, like all of my classmates, I mean, yeah, I'd love to go to space, and I love animals, and maybe I could become an actor, but those felt silly. I always leaned into my examples. Maybe I'll become a doctor. I want to help people. Maybe I'll become a professor. I'm really good at teaching my classmates, otherwise known as doing their homework. Maybe I'll go to Harvard or MIT. And so I write it down. My dreams for the future are to go to an Ivy League or MIT and become a doctor or a professor. I don't know how I knew to write this down at 10 years old, but the funny thing is, none of my teachers and none of my family members ever thought I was too silly. They always thought I could do this. But I didn't really have dreams, because I was always a child of expectations, given by a world that claimed me before I knew myself. Expectations that I took on like a roadmap to find success, to find a life that made sense, a life that added up like the mathematics I was raised to repeat, taking on the lives of others the world deemed successful, never realizing that to save a life does not require a scalpel. To touch a heart does not require fame. To lend a hand, to bring about a smile, to help another does not require hands overflowing with cash. Exceptional, I thought I could only be. I could only reach. I could only attain if I lived a life that others understood. Never realizing that it is my smile. It is the way my face lights up. It is the spirit that I perfume every room I walk into. It is the fact that I will never give up who I am, who I want to be, who I have every right to become. Until now, when I am sitting in this chair, in a Zoom interview, in my childhood bedroom, in my parents' house, that at 30 years old, I never thought I would be living in. I went to the Ivy League school. I graduated with a major that people clapped their hands for, patted me on the back for. I worked in consulting in New York City in the middle of Times Square with clients who would call me and bosses who respected me. But I left. I came home because it wasn't for me. It didn't feel good. These weren't my dreams. These were my examples. His question, Shweta, what would you say is your greatest career success? And I smiled. He might think he knows what I'm about to say. A Fortune 50 client pumping me in the fist. A boss giving me a really good raise. But instead, I look at him. I smile. It's when I left. When I left my job. When I left a life that others expected for me. To find a life that was mine. Thank you.